Tonight you are about to hear 3 disturbing encounters. Real accounts sent directly to us by listeners just like you. Each one involves an isolated gas station. Places we all stop at without thinking twice. Until now. In the first story, an overnight clerk meets a customer who hasn't been alive for years, yet continues to return night after night. Our second account comes from a seasoned trucker who swears he stopped at a gas station that vanished without a trace, though the receipt he kept might suggest otherwise. Finally, a family experiences something deeply unsettling when their child encounters something in the restroom of an abandoned roadside station. Remember, every one of these chilling experiences was sent in by our subscribers, some of whom chose to remain anonymous due to the unsettling nature of their experiences. If you have a story like these, something you can't quite explain, send it to us through the link provided in the video description below. Now sit back, dim the lights, and decide for yourself, are these merely strange coincidences, or is there something darker hiding along the highways? Welcome to Gordon. Our first story tonight was sent anonymously by a young woman who, until recently, worked alone on the overnight shift at a remote gas station off a quiet rural highway. She described the place as old and somewhat neglected, the fluorescent lights flickering sporadically, casting shadows that made even familiar corners feel unsettling. It started on a night no different from any other. At exactly 2:17 a.m., as the digital clock behind the counter flashed the numbers she would soon come to dread, a man walked slowly toward the service window. Elderly, thin, and dressed in outdated clothing, he requested a single gallon of gasoline in a soft, quiet voice. She filled the small can without much thought, handed it back, and watched as he turned away, slowly disappearing into the darkness along the empty road. It struck her as odd that he had no vehicle. He simply vanished into the night. Initially, she dismissed it as a peculiar encounter, but when the same man returned the following night, again precisely at 2:17, repeating his quiet request word for word, she began to feel uneasy. Each night after that, like clockwork, the scene replayed itself. Always the same request, always the same quiet, unsettling disappearance. Growing increasingly anxious, she finally decided to review the security camera footage, hoping to find reassurance. Instead, the tapes offered nothing but a strange burst of static and interference. Exactly at 2:17 a.m., leaving her with no visible evidence of the visitor. Only more questions and deepening dread. Determined to make sense of the situation, she asked coworkers and neighbors if they'd experienced anything similar. Most dismissed her questions, attributing her experiences to late-night fatigue and imagination. However, one older coworker hesitated, looking uncomfortable, and finally admitted that she wasn't the first to report something strange at that particular gas station. The coworker recounted vague tales from previous employees who had quit abruptly after brief employment, citing odd late-night encounters that mirrored her own. Intrigued but terrified, she began to research local history in her spare time, scouring old newspapers and archives in search of answers. She found subtle references to unexplained phenomena near that stretch of road, accidents without clear causes, and unexplained sightings late at night. Each revelation only intensified her curiosity and fear. As the days wore on, the nightly visitor continued to appear, unwavering in his pattern, growing neither friendlier nor more threatening, simply repeating his silent ritual. Her nights became filled with dread, anticipation growing each evening as the clock neared 2:17 a.m. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by paranoia and unease. Eventually, she reached a breaking point, no longer willing to endure the constant anxiety. She knew she had to uncover the truth or leave the job entirely. It was then she began to wonder, who exactly was this visitor? And why did he keep returning each night at the exact same moment? And why, despite everything she uncovered, was no one else willing to speak openly about the unsettling events? She couldn't ignore it anymore. The visits, the time, the way he never changed. Something about it all clung to her, gnawed at her. So, on her day off, she began to dig deeper, not just into what had happened at the gas station, but into the town's own past. She started with local archives, combing through faded newspapers and accident logs in the back room of the small town library. It took time, but eventually she found it. An article dated 14 years earlier. The headline was brief, almost clinical. Local man killed in early morning hit and run near Route 6 gas station. The man had been walking in the dark, out of gas, trying to make it to the same station. The time of death, 2:17 a.m. Details in the report matched perfectly. Age, clothing, the description of a silver gas can found near his body. A man trying to get help who never made it. And worse, the article noted that no suspect was ever found. The case had gone cold. Still unsettled, she decided to speak with some of the town's older residents, regulars who passed through the store during the day. Carefully, quietly, she asked if they remembered anything odd about the station. Most avoided the question. But one elderly customer leaned in and whispered that no one kept the night shift for long, that over the years, there had been stories, people quitting suddenly, refusing to speak about why. One even left their key and uniform folded neatly by the pump. Desperate for more answers, she tracked down a retired police officer who had worked the original case. At first, he was unwilling to talk, but after some convincing, he admitted something strange. The footage from that night had been corrupted. Surveillance from nearby businesses showed nothing. And there had been reports, even then, of unexplained electrical interference at the exact time of the accident. His words were slow, cautious. Sometimes, things don't stay buried the way we think they should, he said. He never forgot the case, None of them had. That night, when she returned to her shift, everything felt different. She sat behind the counter, staring at the clock, heart racing. When 2:17 arrived, nothing happened. No footsteps, no voice, just silence. She never saw the man again. The next morning, she handed in her resignation. She packed her things quietly and didn't look back. But the questions followed her. Why did he come back every night? What kept him tied to that moment, that place? And why, after she finally uncovered the truth, did he stop? Some believe restless spirits need to be acknowledged. Others think they're trapped in a loop, replaying their final moments until someone pays attention. Whatever the reason, she'll never forget the man who kept asking for gas long after he'd taken his final steps. Our second tale tonight was sent in by someone who identified themselves only as Midnight Driver 87. A long-haul trucker with more than 2 decades of experience on the road. According to him, what happened one night on the I-95 still haunts him. Because it shouldn't have been possible. It was sometime in late October. Rain was coming down hard, visibility was low, and he was running behind schedule. He'd driven that stretch of I-95 hundreds of times before. But that night, somewhere between mile markers 33 and 35, he noticed something new. A glowing sign ahead, partially obscured by rain and fog, reading "Gas, open 24 hours." He didn't remember a station being there, but welcomed the chance to pull over, stretch his legs, and check on an odd vibration he'd been feeling under the truck. The station sat just off the highway, isolated, surrounded by tall pines and dense undergrowth. The canopy of trees blocked most of the rain, and the lot was dimly lit by a single overhead lamp above the pumps. There was something unsettling about the place. It looked clean, but aged, as if it hadn't been updated since the early 90s. Old signage, manual pumps, the kind of station you might see in a photograph, but rarely in person. He pulled in, turned off the engine, and stepped out. The moment his boots hit the wet asphalt, he felt it, a strange stillness. The rain had almost no sound here. The buzzing of the light was the only thing keeping the place from total silence. Inside the station's small office, behind a scratched-up counter, stood a man. Average height, thin, wearing a faded red flannel shirt and a cap with no logo. What stood out most was how slowly he spoke, and how blank his expression was. He didn't say hello. He just stared at the trucker for a moment, then said, almost like a whisper, "You're gonna come back through here, right?" The driver gave a polite chuckle, said something like, "Maybe next month," and asked to fill up and buy a soda. The man nodded slowly, handed him change, and said the exact same thing again. "You're gonna come back through here, right?" He shrugged it off. Maybe the guy was lonely, maybe a bit off. But as he walked back to his rig, he realized something was off with the receipt. The timestamp read October 19th, 11:39 p.m. The problem? That night was October 18th. Confused, he tossed it on the passenger seat and got back on the road. The vibration in the truck had stopped. Everything felt normal again. Still, he couldn't stop thinking about the man's voice, that slow, eerie repetition. A few days later, after his delivery route ended, he decided to swing by the area again. Mostly to give the station a heads up about a minor oil leak he'd discovered that might have happened while parked there. He drove the same route, watched the mile markers carefully. When he reached mile 34, there was nothing. No driveway, no lights, no pumps, just thick trees and shoulder grass growing high and wild. He drove back and forth 3 times, got out, walked around. Nothing. He even asked a local mechanic at a nearby diner if there had ever been a station there. The guy shook his head, said the last gas stop in that stretch had shut down in the early 2000s, had been bulldozed. Nothing had been built there since. Later that night, back at his motel, he pulled out the crumpled receipt from his glove box. Same station name, Oakside Fuel Stop. Same amount, same time. But the date now read October 19th, the current day. He checked his phone, his GPS, his logbook. All said the same thing. Today was the 19th. But he remembered stopping there last night. He remembered the rain, the smell of oil, the soft hum of the pump, and the strange man with the slow, repetitive voice. He says he doesn't tell this story often. Most wouldn't believe him. But he sent us the photo of the receipt, which we've verified shows no signs of digital tampering. He still keeps it, folded, faded, from time to time, checking the date again just to be sure. He's never seen that station again. And since that night, he never drives the I-95 past mile 33 after dark. And if you ever do, just know someone might be waiting. And they'll ask you the same thing. You're gonna come back through here, right? Our third tale tonight was sent in through Gordon.com by someone who signed their name as Emma H. She shared with us a story from a family road trip that took a very unsettling turn on a remote stretch of highway. It happened in the summer of 2014. Emma and her husband were on a long drive through the Midwest with their 6-year-old daughter, Natalie. They had been driving for hours through flat, open farmland. No towns, no gas stations for miles, just fields and sky. It was sometime around dusk when Natalie said she needed to use the bathroom. The next rest stop was still over 40 miles away, and the girl was growing more insistent. That's when Emma's husband spotted a narrow, crumbling driveway off the side of the road. At the end of it sat what looked like an old service station, run down, faded signage, and overgrown grass curling around the concrete. The place looked long abandoned, but oddly enough, there was a small, unlit restrooms sign still bolted above a side door. They pulled in. Emma didn't feel great about it. The kind of gut feeling that makes the hairs on your arm stand up. But there was no one else on the road, and Natalie was already unbuckling her seatbelt. Emma offered to go in with her, but the little girl shook her head. "I can do it myself, Mommy." She watched her daughter disappear behind the bathroom door. A few minutes passed, then 5, then 6. Just as Emma reached for the handle, the door creaked open and Natalie stepped out, staring at the ground. Her face looked pale, almost drained, but she wasn't crying. Instead, she whispered. "She asked me not to leave," she said. "She's been here alone for a long, long time." Emma crouched down. "Who, sweetie? What are you talking about?" Natalie only shrugged and said, "She was crying. She was really sad. But she said I couldn't stay." Alarmed, Emma went straight to the door and tried to open it. It wouldn't budge. She knocked. No answer. Her husband tried next, pushing, jiggling the handle. Nothing. The door was locked from the inside. They circled the building, hoping for another way in, but there were no windows on that side. Her husband returned to the truck to grab a tire iron, ready to break the door open, but when he came back, it was wide open, empty. No sound, no signs of anyone, just cold, still air and that awful, musty smell of water-damaged wood and mold. They left immediately. Later that night, back at their motel, Emma asked Natalie again what she saw. The girl hesitated, as if unsure whether she should say it out loud. She had long black hair, and her eyes were really, really dark, like there weren't any lights on inside. She was wearing a dress, but it was dirty. She was in the mirror first. I thought it was just me, but then she turned around and looked at me. Emma said she barely slept that night. Over the following weeks, she tried to find the station again, checking maps, retracing their route, but couldn't. The highway showed no records of a service station in that area. Locals from the nearest town insisted nothing had been there for at least 20 years. One man said a fire had burned an old gas station to the ground sometime in the early 90s. When Emma asked if anyone had died there, he nodded slowly. Little girl, no one knew her name. Some folks say she was trapped inside during the fire. Others think she just got left behind when it all went under. That part of the highway, it's strange. Things show up sometimes, then disappear, especially out near the woods. Emma didn't know what to think, but she remembers Natalie's face when she told her the girl in the bathroom said one last thing before she vanished. She told me she was still waiting for her mom to come back. Emma never forgot that, and to this day, Natalie refuses to use public restrooms on road trips, just in case the girl is still waiting for someone else.
Three tales, three gas stations, all different roads, but the same question remains. Could something like this really happen? Could places we pass every day hide something far darker beneath the surface? We may never know for sure. But if you've ever experienced something like this, no matter how small or strange, don't keep it to yourself. We'd love to hear your story. Visit Gordon.com and share it with us. Who knows, maybe we'll feature your encounter in the next episode. And if you made it this far, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. We're just getting started, and every bit of support helps us keep these stories alive. And if you're still awake, you might want to check out our previous video, Haunted Houses in Japan. We'll be waiting. Always here. Good night.